The sword is heavier than you expected, not because of the steel, because of what it means. The knight standing across from you doesn't smile. He doesn't speak. He simply watches as you lift it for the first time, both hands shaking, arms burning at the elbows. Around you, a dozen others do the same. Some are younger, most are older. None of them look confident. You set the sword down. Your palms are already bleeding. Welcome. Level 1. The page. You are 10 years old, and you belong to someone else now. Your family sent you here because it is an honor, because this is how it works, because a boy becomes something in the service of a lord, not at home in a village where nothing ever changes. You understood that, mostly. What you didn't understand was how completely the life you had would stop existing the moment you arrived. You sleep on straw. You wake before dawn. You carry water. You polish boots. You hold horses in the rain until your fingers stop feeling. Nobody explains why. The explanation is the doing. The knight you serve, Sir Aldrich, has not spoken your name once. You are boy. You are page. You are a function, not a person. This would bother you more if you had time to think about it. You don't have time to think about anything. You learn the rules fast because the cost of not learning them is public. Drop a plate in the hall and 50 men watch you bend to pick it up. Arrive late to the stable and the head groom's hand finds your ear before your mouth can open. The hierarchy here is not explained. It is demonstrated constantly. At night, in the dark, you remind yourself that this is temporary, that there is a next level, that Sir Aldrich was once exactly where you are. You hold on to that. You have to hold on to something. Level 2. The Squire. You are 14 and someone finally hands you a weapon, and means it. Your elevation to Squire doesn't come with ceremony. Sir Aldrich simply says, "You'll ride with me tomorrow." And that is that. 4 years of invisibility collapse into a single sentence. You learn later that he watched you the entire time, that everything, the dropped plate, the late mornings, the rain, was evaluation. You were being read. Now the education becomes real. Swordsmanship, horsemanship, the grammar of armor, how to dress a knight in full plate in under 7 minutes, how to repair a buckle in the field with nothing but a knife and conviction. You study the rules of combat, the rules of tournaments, the rules of address, who outranks whom, when to speak, when absolute silence is the only acceptable answer. You ride into your first real skirmish at 15, a border dispute. Minor, Sir Aldrich tells you. You hold his spare horse and watch men get cut. Minor means something different after that. The psychological shift is quiet. You stop flinching at things that would have broken you at 10. You stop asking whether something is fair. You start asking whether it's effective, whether it's expected, whether it keeps you in good standing with the man whose protection is the only thing standing between you and complete exposure. Loyalty becomes practical before it becomes moral. That's the first thing the Brotherhood teaches you without saying a word. Level 3. The Knight Initiate. The Vigil is a knight alone in a cold chapel with nothing but a candle and your own thoughts. They call it prayer. It is something else. It is the system stripping away your last private self before it stamps you with its mark. You kneel on stone for 9 hours. By the 3rd hour, your knees have stopped hurting and started going numb. By the 6th hour, you are having thoughts you would not repeat to anyone. By the 9th hour, you have made a kind of peace with something you can't name. At dawn, you are knighted. The blade touches each shoulder and your title changes. Sir. 1 word, 3 letters. And yet the entire world rearranges itself around you. Men who looked through you yesterday make eye contact today. The page who serves your table won't meet your gaze. You remember being him. The memory is already becoming abstract. Your first command is small. 4 men, a supply route, 3 days. Nothing happens. You get back on time, but you made decisions. Real ones. Whether to push through at night or camp. Whether to trust the farmer who offered you water or ride on. Small calls that felt enormous because they were yours. You make a mistake at your first tournament, misread an opponent, take a hit you should have deflected, lose the bout in front of 200 witnesses. Sir Aldrich says nothing. He doesn't have to. You replay the sequence for weeks. You start to understand that reputation is not built in victories. It is destroyed in small failures and rebuilt slowly. This realization doesn't paralyze you. It sharpens you. Everything starts sharpening. Level 4, the Ranked Brother. 3 years in as a full knight, and you know how the Brotherhood actually runs. Not the ceremony, the machinery. There are knights who have titles and knights who have influence, and these are not always the same men. You learn to read which is which within minutes of entering a room. The ones with influence don't need to speak loudly. They don't need to stand near the fire to show they're warm. They already have what they need. They are simply waiting for you to understand that. You clear your first major campaign, a siege, 6 weeks, brutal, and come home with a name that travels ahead of you. Men in other companies have heard of the charge you led on the 4th day. You didn't do anything exceptional. You did what was needed when 3 other knights didn't. That's all it took. That's always all it takes. You start accumulating minor debts, not money, favors. A knight you covered in the field owes you. A lord steward who came to you for counsel before approaching his own master owes you something harder to define. You don't collect immediately. You let it sit. The Brotherhood runs on this invisible ledger, and you are learning its columns. The moral compression begins here. You follow an order you disagree with, not a monstrous order, nothing so dramatic, simply a directive to look away from something happening to people with no standing in this system. You look away, you file it. You tell yourself it's not your command, not your call, not your war. You are right about all 3 things. You are also beginning to change in ways you won't notice for years. Level 5, the Veteran Commander. You command 40 men now, and you have stopped remembering all of their names. Not out of cruelty, out of mathematics. There are too many of them, and they rotate, and some of them will be gone inside the year, and the part of you that used to feel that acutely has developed a kind of protective callus. You know the names of the ones who matter operationally. You know who is reliable at the edge of exhaustion. You know who becomes dangerous when scared. That's what you need to know. Your peers have narrowed to 8 men. 8 men whose judgment you trust, whose loyalty you've tested, whose ambitions you've mapped. You know what each of them wants. You know which of those wants might one day put them sideways with you. You monitor this the way a sailor monitors weather, not with fear, with attention. The Brotherhood's upper tier begins making contact, not directly. Nothing is direct at this level. Through assignments, through strategic placement, they send you to the difficult jobs, the ones with no clean outcome, the ones where the only winning move is to be less wrong than the alternative. You handle them. You come back. You are being assessed again, but now the stakes of the assessment are completely different. At night, you sometimes remember why you wanted this, the nobility of it, the purpose, the idea that this structure, this brotherhood, this sword pointed at the right target stood for something. You don't doubt that it does. You've just stopped being certain what that something is. Level 6, the Inner Circle. There are 11 men in this room, and collectively you control the military fate of 3 counties. Nobody outside this room fully understands that. The lords have their titles. The church has its authority. But when those lords need the roads clear, when the church needs its interests defended, when the merchants need safe passage through territories no treaty covers, they come to the Brotherhood. They come to rooms like this one. They come to men like you. The currency here isn't gold, though gold flows freely. It's information, specifically the information that nobody else has yet. Who is planning what movement? Where the loyalty of a particular garrison actually lies? Which lord's second son has been making private visits to which rival family? You collect these fragments, not because you're told to, but because you understand now that information is the only thing that can't be taken from you by force. You are complicit in things you do not name directly. The Brotherhood operates in the spaces between law and order, not outside them, but in the gaps where neither fully reaches. You help maintain those gaps. You benefit from them. When you look at what you've become versus what you swore to be on that cold chapel floor, the distance is real, but it doesn't feel criminal. It feels inevitable. It feels like what competence actually looks like when you stop pretending the world is simple. Your family doesn't understand you anymore when you visit. Your mother asks if you're well. You say yes. It isn't a lie. You're not sure what the true answer is. You stop visiting. Level 7, the Shadow Knight. Your name appears on no formal roster. You have a title within the Brotherhood, but it is never spoken in public, never written in the records the lords see, never associated with the orders you carry out. You are a fact of the Brotherhood, the way gravity is a fact, present everywhere, acknowledged by no one, explaining a great deal. You move between territories with a small retinue of 4 men who have been with you for a decade. You trust them the way you trust your own hands, not with sentiment, with dependence. They know things about you that would end you if they chose to speak. You know the same about them. This is the deepest form of loyalty the Brotherhood produces, not devotion, mutual consequence. The decisions you make now have a radius you can no longer track. You make a choice in the north, and something shifts in the south 3 months later. You've stopped trying to model the full chain. You focus on the immediate calculus and trust that the architecture of the system will carry the rest. You have crossed lines. You know which ones. You don't revisit them often, but you know. There is a particular moment, a decision made 5 years ago in a field, in the dark, that lives permanently in the peripheral vision of your conscience. You don't regret it in the way a younger version of you would have. You regret the world that made it the right answer. That distinction feels important. You're not sure it is. Level 8. The Architect. Nobody knows your face. They know your work. They know the outcomes, the patterns, the signature of certain decisions made over 20 years at the highest levels of this system. Scholars of the Brotherhood, the ones studying its history a century from now, will call you by a title you never chose and argue about whether you were a protector or a predator. They will be wrong about both. You're 70 miles from the nearest city. You have not attended a formal council in 4 years. Occasionally, a rider arrives with a message. Occasionally, you send one back. The Brotherhood still functions according to principles you shaped. Structures you built are still standing. Rules you wrote in private are still being followed by men who have never heard your name. This is power at its purest. It is also its loneliest form. You have 6 people in your daily life. 3 of them serve you functionally. 2 of them you trust with conversation. 1 of them knows most of the truth. You think about the ones who knew all of it, the ones who stood with you in the early years, the ones who are gone. War, illness, decisions, distance, the cost of the climb, tallied in absences. Sometimes you walk the perimeter of the property at dawn because it's the only time no one needs you to be anything. In those hours, you are simply a person moving through cold air. You try to remember what it felt like before the system had its full weight on you, before you were an instrument of it, before you were an architect of it, before you were inseparable from it. You can't quite reach it. The memory is there. It's just behind glass now. You made every choice that led here. You would make most of them again. That's the part that stays with you. Not the regret, but the absence of it. You became exactly what the system needed, and the system gave you everything it promised. What it didn't mention was that everything and enough are not the same number. Somewhere in a lord's hall 2 counties east, a boy is carrying water in the rain. His arms are shaking. His palms are blistered. A knight he's never spoken to walks past him without looking down. The boy watches the knight's back disappear through a doorway. He straightens up. He keeps carrying. He thinks he understands what he's getting into. He thinks it's about honor, about skill, about becoming something. He's not wrong. He just doesn't know yet what it costs to become it. He doesn't know the vigil, the gap between what you swear and what you do, the weight of decisions made in the dark, the silence at the top where the air is thinner and the company is sparse, and the man you were is someone you can only almost remember. He doesn't know any of that yet, but the water is heavy and he doesn't put it down. He won't put it down. That's how it always starts.